course in America called Al-Bayyina by Brother Nu'man Ali Khan, which basically all he does is go around, he has workshops, teaches people the Arabic of the prayer, teaches people the Arabic of some important hadith. So that way you develop a vocabulary, some literacy. Number 3, study, for example, the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi hadith is enough. Number 4, study a basic book of fiqh. It's best to study a madhab if you can, but it's not easy. I don't know what type of language materials you have here that are going to translate those things into the language that's used here. But don't allow your madhab to destroy your relationship with the community. That's a problem. Follow the community, but study your madhab. Khalas? Finally, I will mention something that's also important. This is supposed to be a workshop and I'm just talking. Is that there's a difference between scholarship and literacy. You're not trying to be scholars. You need to be literate first. I need to be literate before I can become a scholar. Many times Muslims, when they come to Egypt from the West, they start asking to study these big texts, and they can't even read, the Ambutut, the Donald Duck magazine, man. And they want to read Maqamat al-Hariri, of Hariri al-Basri. La. Your first goal is literacy. How can you, as a Western Muslim, play a part as a citizen of this fine country and contribute to this process of this country and synthesize your Islam to be Swedish, not Arab, Pakistani, Somalian, or American? And that's scary. And the reason that's scary is because we don't have knowledge. We're trying to bring, some of us, cultural norms from other societies that are not going to function here. And in order to address that, you're going to have scholarship. But scholarship comes first and foremost with literacy. So if we're to look at some of the problems of society here today, suicide, man. And when do most suicides happen in this country? In the winter or the summer?
Summer.
No.
Winter.
Why? Because it's dark outside all the time. And people get depressed. Don't we have young Muslim brothers and sisters here who have studied psychiatry? Couldn't they think, as young Muslims, that they could start some type of organization that will tackle this from a Swedish standpoint and have results in society? And then people would say, wow, Muslims are more than just, what we've heard. They're actually contributing something to the country that we live in. So we ask Allah to bless you. We'll have time for some questions and answers, inshallah. And then we'll move on. I wasn't really briefed on what I was supposed to do, so I was just freestyling. Well, you have to keep in mind that in those days you didn't have the mass communications that postmodernity has brought us. So you could have written a book somewhere and no one would have heard about it till 20 years after you died. You didn't put it on Google Books. You understand what I'm saying? You could have written it down and it could have existed and people would have come across it after you passed away. That's one reason. And also, people make mistakes. The ummah is ma'suma only fima tafaqat alayh. So he's asking, how could certain scholars have these kind of opinions? Because they're human beings. They have gaps, make mistakes like others. Yes?
You said something about seeing to the context in any subject, right?
Yeah.
But how far should you go with this, contextualizing anything?
Yeah, well, there's the wabit set for that. There's guidelines. So number 1 is that it doesn't contradict something which is definitive in nature, like worship only one God. Number 2, it doesn't conflict with something which all ulama agreed upon, ijma' from the beginning of the ummah till now. After that, it's fair game. Number 3, also, it doesn't contradict the custom of the people where you live. So, for example, you don't go to Egypt, and there's brothers who do that, man. And when they come to Egypt, they bring customs which are very abnormal in society because they come from other cultures. So, out of wisdom, just out of common sense, you wouldn't do that. Understand what I'm saying? So, number 1, there's what's called a nas, min nahit usul. So Allah says, Aqimus Salah. Aqimus, establish the prayer. No one can come and say, like when I became Muslim, my mother said, why don't you pray Jummah on Sunday? You can't contextualize that. because it's clear, it's definitive. Number two, what the scholars have ittafaqu alayh, agreed upon, which is rare. Number three, which doesn't go against the cultural norm, which is practiced by all people in the culture, or understood or accepted by all people.
Okay, there aren't any more questions, well, inshallah. I have two things to say before you leave. Firstly, I have an evaluation. I only have 10 sheets, so inshallah I'll hand them out. And it would be great if you could just fill them in quickly and hand them in to me. And also, you now have a short break, about 20-30 minutes, and then there's a lecture in the great lecture hall downstairs, inshallah.